Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, our viewers watching us in Kenya and around the world. Happy Mashujaa Day to everybody who's watching. This is Timeout, the Mashujaa edition. What is Timeout? It is your favorite podcast focusing on major highlights in sport in Kenya and across the globe, behind the scenes happenings both on and off the pitch, numbers, human interest stories in sport, and a look at the future talent in sport. Why do we call it timeout? Timeout in sports means taking a break to re-strategize, to re-energize and rebuild. We are looking into sport a little bit deeper as we seek to help sports brands and personalities rebuild, reorganize, and give a better outlook. Who are we? Well, apart from being called Michael Kwambo and Richard Wanjohi, we are sports lovers. We've played sport. We've worked in sports in very many different capacities. We have a different view of the world of sport. My name is Michael Kwambo, and joining me is my co-host Richard Wanjohi. I'm in Western Kenya. Richie, how is Nairobi?
Nairobi has been crazy. It's been raining the last couple of in about 24 hours. So the showers have been hitting us, but I think towards the later part of the day, there was a bit of sunshine, and I got to capture some action in Kibera. There was a Goro Stars and Kibra. It was an interesting game, but I didn't finish it. But my team won.
Ah, interesting. And what a way to get us updated. Of course, there has been action. We saw it in the past week and over the weekend. Gor Mahia and Tusker were in continental action. Gor Mahia, remember Richie, we talked about them being so organized, having no pre-game shenanigans. They actually pulled off a 3-1 win over Sudan's Al Ahly Meroe in the CAF Confederations Cup second round. Tusker, on the other hand, losing at home to Zamalek of Egypt in the CAF Champions League second round. That match was played at the Nyayo National Stadium in Nairobi. An update from a fixture played between Harambee Starlets and South Sudan. Harambee Starlets hammering South Sudan 8-0 in that Africa Women's Cup of Nations qualified at the Nyayo National Stadium today. Let's talk about the results. And of course, there is the Mashemeji Derby, which has also happened today. We'll talk about it. But let's start with the continental fixtures in the match between Gor and Al Ahly Meroe, and then Tusker and Zamalek.
I think for me, Gor was an interesting game, and I think I said it here when we were having this update last week. With that organization, with you working on your logistics and everything in place, everything works towards your advantage, and that's what happened in Gor Mahia's case. So when they got to the pitch, I think everything was focused on delivering the results. It's unfortunate they had to concede a goal, which might cost them when they come back home. But ideally, then they're still in the pole position to qualify in this particular round. It's kudos to them playing on a Friday. I think we also quite enjoyed that action. Instead of the traditional EPL games that we are always watching, it's good to have our teams back in action. Tusker, unfortunately, I think they lost because of as they are plagued with injuries and everything. But a 1-0 loss is it's still decent. They can pull up something in the next game.
They're playing away in Alexandria against Zamalek. Do you think they are capable of pulling off something against the Egyptians, especially when you consider the track record of Kenyan clubs against Egyptian, Moroccan, and Tunisian opposition?
Now that makes it tricky for them. Because our record is horrendous, so to speak, and unless we have a miracle and something happens to Matano's team on the day, they are the disadvantage.
Okay, they will be disadvantaged. Speaking about a team that is at a disadvantage right now, South Sudan's women. They played against the Harambee Starlets this afternoon at the Nyayo National Stadium. They received 8 goals, and that is the first round. Actually, it's the first leg of the 2-legged qualifier that they are playing against Harambee Stars. Of course, the winner advances to the next round of qualifying. Your take on the result, your take on Harambee Starlets' chances?
I think this is those games that you're like, okay, was it an invitational? Was it a friendly? Because for me, if it's a qualifying, soaking in 8 goals and having come back from a major tournament that is COSAFA in South Africa, I'd expected South Sudan to put up some more opposition, maybe a decent score line like 4-2 or even 3-2, 3-1. But soaking in 8 goals, I think that's a bit embarrassing on them on the for them on the pitch, and it's I mean, for all intents and purposes, Starlets will just need to play a bit of like even play the second string team in the next game so that they're able to just look at what talent they have within the team. It's almost a given given deal that will qualify into the next round.
Yeah, of course, it will be miraculous for South Sudan to score 9 unanswered goals in the return leg against Harambee Starlets. I think that one, we give it to Harambee Starlets, a good run out for them, of course, as they head into the next round of the qualifiers. The Mashemeji Derby was played today. First of all, it has been low key. Seen a lot of shenanigans around it on social media, but the result at the end of the day, Gor Mahia with the 1-0 win over AFC Leopards. Leopards have not won in the Mashemeji Derby since 2016. Status quo was maintained this afternoon.
I think that's why I saved myself the agony of having to go watch Leopards lose and decided to go to a more localized game, which was quite interesting. Seeing local talent at that level, and just mingling with people at Kibera and all that. It was a very interesting conversation, and just a day out. But as you're saying, Mashemeji Derby, so one-sided for the last 5 years. AFC need to do something to, especially when the league resumes. It's not something that they cannot do. I think Gore are still, a team that they can beat on a good day. But for this one, let's give it to Gor Mahia. I think they're still riding on that wave of winning last week.
Tell me something about the local match that you attended. Of course, I am pretty sure that there were numbers there. What were the numbers like in terms of fan attendance?
Wow, it was interesting, I think, because given what had just happened early in the afternoon with the lifting of the curfew, I think guys just decided to just show up for the game and come in huge numbers because that pitch in itself is quite small and they don't have the rafters, so a lot of people were sitting on the walls and on the muddy patches. But I can estimate anything between 3 to 5,000 fans there. We even had McDonald Mariga showing up. I think he was going to make a small donation to the winner of the game. It was quite interesting. I think for me, it felt like that vibe of having indulging with local fans and just being at that pitch, the fever, the excitement before the game or even during the game, and Goro, who were sort of like the outside team. Not caring about what Kibra was going to do on the pitch, and they scored the first goal in the first half. I left it at 1-0. I think Goro still scored another goal, and they won the match on the day.
Yeah, it is quite interesting. Of course, the curfew has been lifted, but there's nothing that has been mentioned about sport. I mean, we have seen the scenario where places of worship are now allowed to have two-thirds capacity. I mean, despite the tweet from the National Police Service, I do believe that entertainment joints are now able to operate 24 hours. But sport, again, remains the forgotten man of the pandemic. We do have the Safari Sevens coming up in another 10 days. And I mean, still no clarity because we do understand the Kenya Rugby has to comply by the government regulations and say that there are no fans. But of course, things have changed. And do you think that it is time to allow fans back into the stadium officially, since it's already happening unofficially? But should the government just get off its high horse and actually open the doors to the public?
And I think we captured this last weekend when you said the politicians have been gallivanting across the nation, having political rallies and all these uh, trips around the different countries, oh sorry, counties for that matter. Today we had a Mashujaa Day celebration all the way in Kirinyaga, and there were huge numbers there. So what's the problem with us sports fan indulging in our favorite sport and getting back to action? I mean, that is why, and as I'm saying, what happened today in Kibera, like you could just feel it. Even as a player, you could see the sort of tension and excitement that was building up in them, seeing their fans in the stadium or seeing them come to give them support. So I think it's important that sports federations start lobbying the government to open up the spaces, even if it's not full capacity, at least half, or at least within numbers that they can work with, especially for this case, for the Safari Sevens.
Yeah, it's good that you talk about sports federations ganging up to lobby the government. In all fairness, they have been pretty timid. If you look at the guys behind the pubs and bars, I believe they have a federation called the Pubs and Bar Owners Association of Kenya. They have been very vocal. The churches have been very vocal. The captains of industry equally have been vocal. I mean, why not sport? I think there's only so much the government can do, but it also needs pressure. And from my opinion, I do feel that the sports federations must, like you say, gang up and pile that pressure for the resumption of funds in the sporting realm. Let's talk about the rally. The World Rally Championship dates for 2022 were announced earlier in the week. Safari Rally is retained. It happens from the 23rd to the 26th of June 2022. Your take on that?
I think this is a good step forward for the Safari. I think we gave our best in 2021, and we saw the action. I think we, even from Wild Rallying Championship figures, the numbers that they generated across their social media platforms, across their viewership, which is paid subscriptions, they hit record numbers with just this single rally. So it was only fair that we get back into the circuit proper, and it's a good thing that they've just put them around the same time. I only hope that our political establishment by around that time will not have too much tension within the nation. I think we'll be a month or two into the elections. So by that time, I think hopefully then the temperatures either will not be too high, or even if they will be, then we'll have known the contenders, and that then doesn't make it impossible for guys coming from other countries to visit. But it's a good thing to have the rally back in the WRC. Let's put our best foot forward. I think there'll be a new. I think I was reading the announcement. There'll be a new. What do they call it? There'll be new manufacturers coming in. I think for energy something. I didn't get the specifics, but there'll be a new class introduced in next year's rally.
We're still talking about the rally. Carl, the Flash Tundo, he is going for the ARC driver's crown. The Rwanda rally is, I think, the penultimate round. He is ranked first on the drivers' standings with 90 points. Do you think the Flash has what it takes to secure this title?
I think it's a foregone conclusion unless something drastic happens on the road. And I think I was waiting for that action before starting this session, but I didn't get any updates. It's all good for him, and I think, as I said, with the Safari Rally coming back, even our local drivers have had so much exposure, so much drive on the roads, and it's only fair that they win on the continental challenges. So for Carl, I think it's something that he deserves, and kudos to him once the rally is over.
Okay, we do have the mini classic safari rally. I do believe this is what used to be the East Africa Classic Safari. Of course, due to COVID-19, it wasn't able to run in 2020. It used to cover Kenya and Tanzania, if I'm not wrong, in its form as the Classic Safari. With it being a 1,000-kilometer rally being run exclusively in Kenya, of course, we see household names from days gone by, the likes of Azar Anwar, Ian Duncan, Anthony Nielsen. We haven't heard from him in quite a while. I remember he was quite the motocross enthusiast. Of course, he did make the shift into motor rallying and then just faded off the scene. But the mini classic safari is back, and Richie, I look at it as one of the events that is, signifying a return to normalcy after COVID. The fact that we are able to see the return of all these sporting events. We've seen the Safari Sevens. I believe we're going to talk about that later. We've seen a lot more events coming up. The new Kenyan Premier League season has kicked off. Your thoughts on the mini classic safari?
I think this is a nostalgic event. Again, as you're saying, it used to cover the two or even at most extremes, three East African countries. But I think for this one, they decided to run it a bit tighter. They squeezed about 1,000 kilometers within the country, and that happens around November. I think they're trying to not have too much action as the short trains have hit us. And I think they will still encounter trouble on some of the roads given what has happened in the last couple of weeks or last couple of days. Sorry, and it's good to see some of these former drivers coming back into action. This is why we used to love rallying, and unfortunately, some of them didn't get to go back into the safari rally as it was. But yeah, as you're saying, it's good to see the Ian Duncans of this world, Anthony Nielsen, who has been MIA for the longest time, but I think he's trying to get his foot back in. We saw the action even in the Safari Rally locally when the young drivers sponsored by Safaricom did some great work and managed to finish with top honors. So it's a good thing to have this rally back. Nostalgia. For some of us, if we're able to go and capture the action, I think I'll try maybe shuttle down to one of the routes and capture some of the action.
Of course. Now, that's it for the rallying news. Let's go to a bit of athletics. And remember, last week we talked about the tragic death of Agnes Tirop. Her husband, Ibrahim Rotich, who is suspected of killing her, was captured in Mombasa while trying to escape from the country. Um, it what can I say? It is quite heartening to know that the law, the long arm of the law, has acted fast in apprehending the suspect. We're just hoping now that for Agnes Tirop's family, they do get justice. A bright star whose light was dimmed too early. Tragic loss. My personal sentiment is that, of course, for the husband who is behind her death, of course, there still is a court case to determine whether he is or not guilty. I mean, he has robbed Kenya of a gem.
Yeah, it's a bit tragic, and I think we captured sorry, Agnes's incident, and also the athlete from Embu. I think you shared with me as you were doing the session. Um, these cases have become too frequent, and it's showing that we have a bit of a challenge, especially in the athletics or within the sporting fraternity. A lot of mental health issues, a lot of challenges to do with economic, people not having economic something in their pocket, and that again spills over to the performances or eventually to the lives of our athletes. And for someone to be able to act in such a way that you just decide to take young talent like that, I think the full force of the law should be behind him and make sure that we don't have such cases as we go towards the end of the year. I was reading some cases in, the World Health Report. I think this year alone, we've already reported over 500 cases of suicide. I don't know how many of those are in the world of sport, but this, I think, it's something that Athletics Kenya and all the other sports federation need to address. The mental health illnesses, the mental health challenges. This is something they'll need to keep tackling as we go along, and also we're going into 2022.
Indeed, like you said, quite a number of challenges are facing our athletes, quite a number of problems. We do hope that with time they're able to talk about them, they're able to get help. Just so that it be known is that we, the team here at Time Out Podcast, obviously do not condone gender-based violence or any form of abuse in any form, as we said. And it is quite tragic. And once again, to the family of Agnes Tirop, to the Kenyan athletics fraternity, our condolences to them. We are still on timeout. This is a podcast dedicated to sport. We focus on major highlights in sport in Kenya and across the globe, behind the scenes happenings both on and off the pitch, numbers, human interest, stories in sport, and a look at the future talent in sport. Let's go to volleyball. And Kenya Volleyball Federation has taken the radical decision to play the 2021 season indoors. I mean, that is the trend globally, and that is why the national team struggles when they go onto the international stage. from playing their games outdoors to indoor venues and probably just having a 3 week feel. In spite of this radical move by the Kenya Volleyball Federation, veteran coach Moses Epoloto has criticized the move and says a lot more needs to be done. Maybe Richie, you can tell us what more it is that Epoloto feels should be done.
I think what the criticism all about in this particular case is the fact that a lot of venues around the country that are supposedly supposed to host some of these games, either they don't have enough capacity for crowds, and also before players are able to acclimatize to playing indoors only, most of them have been used to playing in the outdoor spaces, and especially in outskirts of for example, in Nakuru or even in the Rift Valley parts of the country. But as you say, if it's something that then needs to be worked on and for the federation to make sure that our players are able to acclimatize and get used to playing indoors and get used to that level of competition, then who are we to say they're the custodians of the game? And eventually, hopefully, then we're able to adapt even as fans and also for them to build that capacity to be able to host. I think the coach, Epoloto, was trying to just say that investment in infrastructure needs to be done, but then before then, let's not cost the teams, their fans, or even that participation from the different stakeholders in just running this unilaterally.
Indeed, and I also saw a comment from Epoloto, must have been in the Daily Nation, where he said, okay, fine, playing in the indoor arenas is good, but how many games are you playing? And I believe in terms of exposure, he gave an example of the French system where they play up to 35 games in a season. And he says by the time you're getting to game 32, you actually decide whether you want to be in this sport or not. So looking at it from that point of view, I do believe he's got a point because playing in indoor venues is the same as me giving you a pair of boots and telling you because Fiji play in Mizuno boots. I'm not that I'm a brand ambassador for Mizuno, but just as I mentioned, playing in Mizuno boots, that it'll improve your performance. But there has to be a lot more than that.
No, I think as you say, it's not the infrastructure that will make the performances change. I think there is more technical skills to it. There's more exposure even for the players beyond our boundaries. But maybe if the federation feels that margin of error will be reduced between us losing a game in the Olympics or any international games, let's give it to them and let's hope then that makes a difference. But again, as you're saying, or even as the Peloto said, if we have a league that is running, I think for 6 to 8 months, how many games can the teams play indoors, and then what's the infrastructure like that will support those games across the country?
Indeed, and we do hope that the Kenya Volleyball Federation gives Epoloto an ear and doesn't shut the door on him. Talking about doors being shut, Eric Kapaito has officially shut the door on his Kariobangi Sharks career. He moved to newly promoted Ethiopian Premier League side Arba Minch City. I believe the league season is already in progress. Richie, let me give you my take on this. The most valuable player in the Kenyan Premier League lives for a newly promoted club in Ethiopia. What are we saying about Kenyan football?
And I think that's precisely why I put it there, because I think we've been talking about Kapaito in previous episodes of Time Out. And I think I mean, I don't mind someone going pro in a different country, be it Saudi Arabia or in parts of Europe. But in this case, losing talent like that to a newly promoted team in Ethiopia, I don't know whether it's a downgrade or maybe it's because of the pay. Then he's looking at something extra in his pocket. But I think it's a bit of a damnation on a local league or a local football then, because it means that he's not capable, or he's not feeling that the local teams are capable of hosting what he can do, either his talent or just meet his needs, be it on pay, endorsements, and all that. And I think this is where the KPL needs to look upon itself and say, why do we need to lose such talent to our neighbors?
Yeah, indeed. And, like you said, it is a harsh indictment on the KPL. And the less we say about it, the better. The NBA is marking its 75th anniversary. Um, I was going through something on social media not too long ago, and I saw that they have dedicated something to Africa. I really didn't get the nitty gritty, but I know that there's some recognition for Hakim the Dream Olajuwon. Maybe you can tell us more about that.
I'd be lying if I said that I captured that, but I think I'll try and share that. I think in the next episode, I've been largely offline for the better part of the day, but I think it's a good thing that the NBA season starts on its 75th anniversary. I think this is going to be a regular season, starting, and they started the games last night. We had the major teams that made it to the playoffs. We had the Bucks playing the what do you call it, the finalist as well. I'm forgetting the team. Uh, yeah, but the Bucks won the game, the first game. But there was also the Warriors versus the Lakers, and again the Warriors beat the Lakers. So it's an interesting start to this season, and I think it's going to be quite a tough one because then most of the players have been, sort of trying to get their vaccines sorted, trying to restrict their movements because, again, in as much as they were out of the bubble with, off the season, there were still limited travels, especially to holiday destinations. So a lot of them didn't quite enjoy what they usually have as their summer break. But then it's back to action for the basketball fans and also for the basketball in the US. It's kudos to Hakim, the dream. I think he used to do the shuffle back in the 90s. He's a talent that Africa is proud about. Unfortunately, he's a US citizen, but yeah, he made and played a major role in Africa acknowledging one of its own and also accepting the NBA in its wider reach. And I think we have seen a lot of that action in the last couple of years, especially what happened earlier this year in Rwanda. So kudos to Olajun and all the best to him.
Or veganism in the 70s and 80s. I believe that tragedy at Heysel in Belgium in 1980, was it 85 or 84, when Liverpool and Juventus were playing in the then European Champions Cup final, actually changed the course of how English fans behave. Of course, we had the Hillsborough tragedy of 1989. Again, when Liverpool, I can't remember who they were facing in the FA Cup semi-final. Again, because of crowd trouble, those were determinant moments or defining moments for England in terms of their fan management. However, the curse has come back to haunt them. They've received a one-match ban for Euro 2020 fan trouble at Wembley.
I think the English one is still the English one, and I think the unfortunate thing is that even in the Euros, they still didn't change the way they look at the game, and I think it was a good feel that the English were finally in the final. I think we ought to have given it to them to maybe push them as the 12th man to the next stage. Unfortunately, on the day they couldn't bring it together, and the Italians had the better of them and won that game. That cost them, I think, and that's part of the reason that they have been given this ban. But then it's also a good thing that the European football authorities need to just stamp out on fan trouble and also maybe put a bit more urgency on the racism issues as well. But I think it's also good that even the top teams get to know that you're not above the law, you're not above the rules on certain grounds. If this is going to then make them put tighter restrictions or tighter measures when having the games. We have the World Cup coming in Qatar next year. So you want to see teams, especially when they're doing the final qualifications and also as they get ready for the 2022 World Cup, just have let's have not let's have off stadium stuff off the stadium, not in the stadium, and also, especially not the fan trouble as well.
Okay, I know we're supposed to be winding up the show, But there's still something that we can talk about. The Kenya Rugby Union has today announced that so far 14 teams have confirmed their participation in the Safari Sevens. 10 of these are in the men's competition. Tomorrow, I do believe we'll have two more confirmations. Just your take on the fact that the Safari Sevens is happening.
I think that's a good thing, and that the beauty about Kenyan sport is that we have that variety that we offer, from athletics to football to rugby to, unfortunately, cricket, which has not yet come back to what it used to be. But it's a good thing that we have the Safari Sevens, a traditional fan favorite sport, or something that you mark on your calendar every year. It's back in action, and I think, and I hope the federation will be able to get back the fans into the stadium, because rugby sevens without the fans, then it's almost, it's such a door activity that, we don't, even us as the media will not enjoy ourselves. And that's part of the reason that we enjoy ourselves when we come to cover such games. But it's a good thing to have 14 teams confirming. I hope we'll have maybe a few more and have interesting competition as we cut and raise for the upcoming rugby season.
Indeed, let's look forward to the final composition of teams for the Safari Sevens in 2021. It has been 31 minutes of the Timeout podcast. I like that with every time we do this, we just seem to be getting better. And I mean, why not blow our own trumpets once in a while?
I think it's a work in progress. I'll still say that we need to tighten a few bolts and nuts in there. But as we said last week, let's hit the ground running. Let's get more action. Let's get all this information out there. Let's hit our fans with all the facts and the small nitty gritties that we have in different cocoons in the world of sport. And yeah, let's enjoy ourselves as we do this.
Indeed, and this has been another episode of Timeout. We are working on becoming a lot more regular and consistent. My name is Michael Kwambo, and signing off from Nairobi is
Richard Ojohi. Richie, for you. Kwaherini and happy Mashujaa, and what remains of it anyway.
Indeed, happy Mashujaa Day. It's time for a timeout. See you again next time.